that's the plan. That's the goal. Easier to talk about.
All right, getting the bot here so we can get started.
Now recording.
All right, Think Decade, I don't know if will join us or not, but let's see if we can get someone to take notes. There is already one here. Is it you, Ice?
Okay. Yep. Yeah, no, that's I made it just because organization purposes.
Thanks, Ice. All right. Well, I put some agenda items here. And I know Joe wanted to speak, and I guess he forgot what he wanted to speak about. But are there any other agenda items that we're going to talk about? Okay. If not, then let's get started with the Constitution. Ernest?
Can anyone hear Ernest? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, mic check.
I can hear you now.
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, essentially, we're continuing. We got through Article 2 as a group review at the last meeting. Still, encourage folks to either submit their own versions of their first edit and review and thoughts and suggestions about the doc. There's also some documents on that workstream page if you want to look at them like articles individually. But for the most part, we're working from TrueCat's doc, not the individual docs. On Article 5, we do have an individual doc for, yeah, it should be, I don't know what you're doing. Be easier to look at our last meeting notes than. Essentially, it's the resources are there for people to individually look at sections. Largely, folks just have not been reading or offering edits in between sessions. So we're coming back later this afternoon, and hopefully, there's the edits that are done collectively are just way better than myself for sure can do individually. But so if folks need it, I'll share a link when I'm done talking about the doc essentially that we're working from. And yeah, we encourage folks to join us this afternoon. We're kind of going through and removing the extra stuff for the most part. And yeah, that's the update.
All right, thanks, Ernest. I also saw you posted a temp check, which you want to publish today. Does anyone have any final feedback on it, or are you not looking for that here?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, essentially just going, it was just a format change, but it gets the headings correctly. I am going to go back through the document that we're making edits to just to make sure I have the most current headings. I was not able to easily publish a table, but there is an actual table with the BDIP format changes. And then this poll will of course be open.
We lost you there at the end, Ernest.
Oh, I was just saying that it's gonna throw it out there today, get some attention to the new proposal, the official proposal through the week, and then we got the community call that we can mention it at, and should get picked up in the rollup.
That looks good. Craig, were you trying to say something?
No, I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. Sorry, guys. I'm just listening. I'm a fly on the wall.
No worries, no worries. All right, thanks, Ernest. Anything else about the Constitution? Okay, if not, then I think the next one was the multisig. Although Sinad is not here, does anyone else want to take it meanwhile?
Well, he did mention that he would be in the second half of the meet. So if there are other things we could talk about, maybe we could come back to this one.
For sure. Then maybe we can do this tooling. We started talking about it last week. And yeah, we explored like some options with the Governor and Snapshot, but I don't know if we reached any consensus on how we can move forward with this forum quorum. Any thoughts?
I'll say again that I think doing a snapshot would be not adding a new tool. And yeah, I think a snapshot would be a cool way to do it, but it's, obviously it has less. I think we'll have a drop off of people participating as a result. I think any tool would be that though.
So the issue that we're trying to address is as a Sybil resistant consensus mechanism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sybil resistant soft consensus. It's not even soft consensus, right? Because we need it to go past. Like that is enshrined in our constitution, actually.
In my opinion, Commonwealth will be great.
Commonwealth is pretty good.
Yeah, we can actually have one-to-one migration of our forum and have plugins too.
Then we can token gate it.
See.
Yeah, Does Commonwealth, like you can token gate it, so anyone with a link and the token can get in, right? Like that's what token gating means in this case.
Yeah.
Okay. But would it just be up to 35? Like, could we say 35,000, or is it just like you have bank, you're in?
I'm looking at it right now.
So a couple of thoughts on like these things generally, right? Like, I mean, Commonwealth, like again, we've used this platform in the Writers Guild for a handful of months, saw a huge drop off in participation, but that was before they had wide support for mobile. And I'm not even sure links if they had like any kind of wallet connect feature, you might have needed MetaMask. But at the same time, it does allow for a lot of functionality that we need. So it kind of integrates governance into one spot, which is cool. You don't have the context switching problems. It would require the whole DAO to migrate over to Forum, or I'm sorry, over to Commonwealth, which, obviously there's that whole issue, but it is a kind of a comprehensive all-in-one VC-backed governance platform, for lack of a better term, versus something that is a little more ad hoc using Discourse than using Snapshot, or Governor, which, there's maybe a slight bias toward native tools, I guess, but Snapshot space would be cool. Also, I agree, Links. I don't know what the best move is. I think you need to get a temp check with the community on tooling, maybe, but I think there's more friction probably with Governor, maybe. But yeah, so I mean, how do we have a discussion about changing platforms? Like, how do you even begin that? And is it worthy of a discussion? That's a big change, whereas a small tooling tweak to get Sybil resistance is a small change. I would probably be of the mind to do the small steps approach, but I'm super open. So like, what do we think? I just really want Sybil resistance. Like, if we're going to worry about quorum and these things on forum, like you got to have Sybil resistance, or it just seems like kind of silly. So I'm super keen to pursue this, but I don't have a great sense of what the community wants or what people want here.
Well, I think that we've got a lot of options, like soft consensus. Again, like integrations with Discourse. We've got changing like our processes. We've got Commonwealth, like migrations we could do. And I think that like the way forward is, similar, just similar levels of consensus. Like, and in the same way, like changing the tokenomics it's a matter of like, we can generate a forum post. We scream and shout on the CC call, make sure the writers are writing about it. And then you pull the plug and we just shut down. We can set up a redirect from the forum and say, hey, we're depreciating the forum and making it an archive.bankless.community. So there's like migration paths and process we can do. I think it's a question of exploring the different options and just really understanding the positives and negatives and as a DAO making a decision on it.
Yeah, and I think like as well to your point, experimentation is key, right? Like we did do some experimentation with Commonwealth in the past. Maybe we could use it for this work stream. And
My
then
quick question is: Governator working on a discourse integration?
long run, but it's not on their like they're not currently working on it. So long run, that's what the vision of Governator is, to be able to kind of like have a
Yeah, if no one knows, I was just wondering how we can use Governator here.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Bear,
Yeah,
you can
I
hear
mean,
me?
if no one knows how, if Governator is working on a discourse integration, I was just wondering.
Links was replying to you. Can you not hear him?
No, I can't.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
gonna exit and come.
Okay. What he said, I'm gonna mirror it. He said that that it long term roadmap, not short term. I mean, I think that there's a lot of options we can do. Like I know Discourse and Discord is working on integration, and if we can't do Sybil resistance in Discourse, we have Sybil resistance in Discord. And so if we can gate based on a role in Discourse, we have what we need.
We do, but we may as well just use Snapshot in that case, right? Like if we're already going to be linking people out to other posts, we may as well get them using Snapshot.
No. So what I mean is that like, so Discourse, if it has Discord integration functionality, I gotta look, but I could see where it's like we mirror the roles in Discord into Discourse and we integrate the two. And so the only role we care about is L1 plus. And so if L1, they can vote. Again, like we got to look at all the different functionality there because we're really just looking for gating votes.
Can't make like 10 profiles and have 10 Discords and vote 10.
Well, we're in the same boat with that with wallets, like proof of humanity challenges. That's a circular challenge.
It was kind of cool to see. Go ahead, Lynx.
No, I've been talking. You go.
It was cool to see that Snapshot integrates with Gitcoin Passport now, from what I saw, what I recall seeing last week. So that's like obviously a big step forward for Sybil resistance. I mean, Governator, right, can link, embeds into Discord. So you could link out of Discourse, to Governator that links to our Discord. I hear you that that's something that could happen quickly because you can already gate L1 and above and doesn't require, making separate snapshot spaces and stuff. I do think Snapshot's cool for that stuff. I mean, we've used it at GMN for like 300 polls, so it's fun just for its own sake. But and also would be useful for that. But like Governator's here too and like ready to go. I mean, you could literally, if we could get DAO consensus, be token gating to L1 and above, within a matter of weeks if we push it through forum. So I'm not saying that's the route to go, but that would be an easy Sybil resistant kind of switch to flick if we got consensus around it versus snapshot spaces might be a little more complex. And then of course, platform migrations, kind of the whole cow, which maybe would be awesome, but I would just like to maybe move for, like have this in place, certainly before we start worrying about seasonal funding for S8, especially if we're going to start actually using forum to fund projects for the first time, maybe ever. Right.
Yeah. And, to your point, Hero, like one thing we could do without getting consensus is convince grants committee to just ask all to ask all grants pools to be token gated, right? And then we don't actually have to update the constitution to have them do that because they have the authority to do that themselves. We could have. I actually think that every group should be responsible for their own intake. So we could say that like, oh, if the multi-signers have access to Snapshot, then iCool wrote this access to Snapshot dot. He could put in, use this, like have a token gated method to do it how you want. We don't even need Governator. Even we could just use Discord and use their gated polls as well, right? Like we could use Sesh as well, which is already installed. But the idea being that to put it in to get it working without a BDIP, we could still do that if we got the proper groups on board.
Nice. Smart.
I just liked somebody's comment earlier. If we can demonstrate a process or tool's effectiveness in our own work stream, I think it'd make it easier for other groups in the DAO to adopt the same practices. And that in itself would like build consensus for, any major changes or improvements that come in this way. I also think that, when it comes to tooling kind of in general, there's a lot of the decision making about tooling, can probably be handled within the ops department through temp checks, to the DAO if needed. And then, I always make sure to like try and reach out to the InfoSec team as well, because, I think most people are, in agreement that if there's any, security issue with a tool, right? That's a good place to go to like ensure that if you're like me and don't know how to check it yourself. And then, obviously there's a level of decision makings that everybody trusts the InfoSec team to make, if there are security issues. But the main thing is
Agreed,
building
Ernest.
consensus, right? And I do, the Sybil resistance is, I think, one of those things that has InfoSec concerns that influence the decisions. And then, obviously anything that, makes it more easier, easier to participate in governance, whether it's from a security point of view or UI point of view, is generally, folks are in favor of it. Just kind of takes time to introduce people to new tools. There are some groups in the DAO that use Commonwealth. I wouldn't mind using it in a work stream such as ours, especially to experiment and test with some of the gating features and whatnot. It makes it easier to explain to people how it works if you can see how it works. And if we're reporting to people how we work, through Commonwealth or whatever, then people can see our activity, build trust in our work stream more, and then also maybe even adopt the same tooling on their own.
Agreed with you. And can I add another criteria to this? I think that it's also important that we think about the additional effort that opening new platforms takes. I think that there is, as soon as we have a Commonwealth, we're going to need an admin for Commonwealth, and we're going to need certain people to do things. But like when we talk about things like Discord, these tools already exist. Snapshot already exists, right? Like we have admins, we have the infrastructure to administrate this stuff already. So if we are going to Commonwealth, there should be there's an additional burden of administration and maintenance and probably more effort involved as well. It's just something to note. As we're adding tools, it could be that we're adding. I personally have this feeling that the DAO should be able to run, especially in this bear market, with as little effort as possible. So that's just something that I wanted to bring up.
I'd like to add to that too, because I agree. Especially Snapshot, I feel is one of those tools that, like, the more you understand about Snapshot and get the opportunity to use and manage Snapshot, the broader your skills get everywhere. also getting information from some ENS delegates. And so ENS subdomains are highly accessible. We can have ENS subdomains for DAO members individually and for every single organizational unit. So that, I don't know if that would help with some civil resistance, but be bringing that. There's a discovery call next in the education department next Monday, um, early in the morning, if folks are interested in learning about the ENS.
All right. Do we have some consensus on the next step?
I think the work stream has more like has research to do. Like we have more discussion because I think we've highlighted a lot of different options of like there's preferences, like Heroes highlighted of like let's move to the minimal viable forward movement. But I think that there's like we just have a lot of options, and so we need to investigate some of them further and go, okay, cool, like this works. Based on research done, this is likely the best route.
I agree. I think if we could get like a poll up just to kind of get a sense of where we are in the work stream by the end of the week, early next week, after a little bit of research and back and forth, I think that'd be great. I get a sense that there's kind of like general soft consensus for an iterative approach, and then maybe it makes sense to go see what a larger platform migration looks long term. Mindful of what Link said, and of course, just it would take a lot longer to migrate to a platform than it would be to use tooling that we already have work streams for. So great. So I think some more chat and then go from there. Links, do you have any, I guess maybe before we move past that, Links, do you have any recommendations for talking, or would you be willing to talk to GC about adopting civil resistant tooling in the short term?
I could talk to them. I suspect that they are going to want me to get quorum on a forum post to do it. I don't think that they're my biggest fan right now. So I'm willing to talk to them, but it may be easier for someone else.
I mean, you might recall, like I put a poll up, I think, I can't remember the end of season 6 or beginning of season 7, but around that time, using Governator when it was kind of getting some of the bugs worked out, to see whether the GC would be willing to use, Governator token gated quorum polling essentially. And well, I think only Sanad voted yes, and nobody else really voted. So maybe it's another time to revisit that. But the only tool really available now, Links, would be to use Governator, right?
No, Governator, Snapshot, Sesh.
Well, just in the things. I guess it's in the short term. Yeah, but sorry, Ice, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think probably like I think that the shortest term is likely Governator, but
Sesh is just as it doesn't directly look at wallets, but it looks at your roles, which are done in collab land, right? So it's already that workflow already exists.
Yeah.
Not to make anyone think I'm anti-Governator, but it definitely has more steps for people to vote than Sesh. And it's still awkward. I don't know if you recall, I posted a few Sesh polls instead of posting them in Discourse. And there was definitely less people voting.
It's platform switching. It's always like it just creates enough of an overhead. Like getting people to vote on the dang thing is hard enough. So
about like Sesh versus Governator. I mean, Governator keeps the results shielded after it closes, which is kind of interesting. Whereas Sesh, I don't recall that does. I haven't used Sesh in a while for a poll because I've been using Governator for the last couple months, just kind of playing with it. Is it easy? I mean, do you think it's better, like just hands down, a better tool to use for now?
Sesh is more mature. So like you can like these things where you're like, it doesn't have shielded voting. But if you're like, I want to I want to be able to see who voted after it has that. Yes, it's a more mature tool in general, but Governator has some features which are Governator specific.
Fair. Okay. Well, maybe I'll put that on my list then, Links, if you want me to ping GC.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely get involved if you like, but I'm worried they may take. I'm worried that they don't yeah, I'm worried about interacting with them. Sorry, but I will help.
Well,
Good. Okay.
I want to point out too, when it comes to voting, the main like problem with voting is how are you resolving a tie in your voting system, and how are you gating and ensuring that the people voting in your polls are members of the group recognized as being able to vote. To my knowledge, right, in Snapshot, there's at least a dozen voting systems, over 100 voting strategies. And if you want ranked choice voting, the only place I know to go of that's the most civil resistant is Snapshot.
And they're the ones with the resources to continue iterating on this through the bear as well.
So I'm not like objecting to like, so when I want what, you know, I would love to see all that done in Governor. But there's just so much to learn from Snapshot, and so much more, for us to learn about voting and describing our voting systems, right? So I definitely see Snapshot as a tool we could leverage more and should. But does every guild or project want to, run their own Snapshot just because they have a free ENS subdomain? Way easier to just use Governor in the Discord where you're at 98% of the time.
Yeah, more conversation for the tooling work stream, definitely. But yeah, I do agree. Snapshot is like the easier solution. But okay, let's go to the next topic, which is mission and vision. Yeah, there was some chatter in the subthread on what it is. I know now Senat posted a big message towards the end, but yeah, does anyone have any thoughts here? No one wants to go, I can go. At least my thoughts here are that now the statement itself is very complicated and very hard to meme out, especially to externals. So the statement has to be simple, catchy, mimetic, and B, the mission itself is supposed to be like a set of milestones that we iterate on every, I don't know, 5 years, 4 years, take your pick, to achieve that vision, or at least how this is how other nonprofits and larger organizations do it. They keep the vision to be more vague and something ambitious, and the mission is sort of iterated so that over time you're closer to achieving that vision.
I don't disagree with you. I guess I just I feel like we could go round and around and around on mission, vision, values over and over again, and it's. I just don't know if it's like the best bang for our buck in terms of what we should put our effort on, in my opinion. But I recognize if people are interested in it.
I agree with that.
Okay, then if there are no further comments, we still don't have Senat, but perhaps we can look at some of the other work groups. Do we have any updates on this governance incentives? I know we had a meeting with 5 Coin folks last week, and Joe wanted to speak about something related to this. Ernest, do you remember by any chance what this is about?
Just to note that we're from ThriveCoin point of view, um, we're tracking contributions, of course, that are given Thrive for. Um, we have, we're also over there encouraging people to like add like what other things, other governance activities um, might we want to incentivize with Thrive rewards. Um, I did a little research. I would just want to give a plug for nearandfar.com, right? If you're familiar with the two big books, True Cat knows the title of one, Undistractable or something like that. But this one that I kind of have some notes for is called The Hook. Um, Essentially, um, what the way it kind of frames is, well, what does a habit look like, and how do people, human beings, biological beings, social beings, actually develop habits? um, People largely develop habits to move away from negative emotions or feelings. So if you don't know the negative feeling that moves somebody to participate in governance as they understand more their role in governance and how it can change their life, um, then you're gonna find it very difficult to set up incentives, rewards, and compensations for governance behaviors. Um, there's a link here to like a 20-minute video that just, oh man, it's like jam packed with just like the basic way to kind of like understand how deep this goes in its book. But um, I would say it's hard to have a discussion about any kind of incentives without understanding this book, without understanding the neuroscience psychology behind it. um, and also without having discussions about what triggers are, how internal external triggers work, um, what a variable reward is, which is generally what's used to um, really trigger habit forming patterns in humans. um, so just kind of keeping my notes about all that stuff here. um, some resources for other folks that want to contribute or understand it.
Yeah, I think we summarized it as the ethical questions about incentivizing governance, and yeah, your frame is habits, and how do we know which are the right habits to incentivize?
Well, what's a healthy habit? We have to have some kind of consensus or consent from folks to develop a healthy habit. Um, a healthy habit where, at least once a week, people are, this is why it's
Yeah.
so understanding the ethical consideration comes from, if you understand somebody's negative emotions, if as long as you have their consent, uh, be like, hey, you want to connect to the world. Well, you feel isolated. Well, participating in governance may fulfill that feeling of isolation. And so here's little activities that you can do, and sometimes you get rewarded for it when you participate. But these activities are designed to help you feel more connected to the community. You may also, maybe you feel powerless, and so your feeling is different. And so as long as I think we can identify these things and share it with people that, if you feel this way, this is, and then check in with people like, does this habit of checking the forum every day, um, get you to occasionally comment or leave feedback on something, then that's kind of an ethical way to go about things. And having people's consent to do so kind of is that check. Um, Obviously, the rest of our market products in society are generally trying to use this hook to get you to buy things to increase their market share. And so, um, we have to do a kind of sanity check. But I think there's a lot of agreement about what healthy governance looks like, as opposed to saying, well, this is right, this is wrong, this should be rewarded, or this should not be rewarded. Um, and there's a difference between being compensated for governance or compensated for taking risk for being a multi-sig signer, and a difference between a reward and an incentive.
Yeah, definitely some roadblocks and important questions to tackle for us. Does anyone have any other thoughts on this? Okay, if not, then maybe we can move to the last point, which is the multisig. Senna, do you want to take over?
Sure. Sorry, first of all, for being late. Looks like I might miss a few of these calls during the first half. A new meeting popped up. But in terms of multi-signers, I think we have a first draft of a BDIP that is hopefully soon able to go out on forum. We made some edits, and thank you, Links. Shout out to you for taking up the initiative and basically incorporating the feedback that has been shared by Hero and TrueCat. And I think the major thing here is just for me to go through the edits, which I will do, and then kind of get some confidence, or like get maybe again feedback whether we all aligned with what's in there or not, and kind of submit it on forum. I like the idea of including the chippy as something optional. I had to laugh when I saw that. I think it was a great idea, Links. We can definitely keep that in.
It was not my idea. I think it was Jenga Jojo, and I just accepted the suggestion.
That's a good one, Jenga. Kudos to you, my friend. Other than that, I didn't have the kind of mental capacity today to just basically, think this through and go through it, but I will definitely do that. If someone else wants to jump in, feel free to do so. Looking at the stage, kind of at the bottom, basically like next steps, we got the temp check, the BDIP is currently under revision. The application submission, I created the draft. That being said, that's nowhere for being kind of finished, but it's at least a start. And I think we set ourselves as a goal to push all of this through in this season. And I think we're kind of still on track somehow. I don't know how, but somehow. It looks good that this is probably going to be out on forum soon. And anyone else to add on top of what I just said?
Can we get a verification that this is a minor this is a minor change?
Minor.
Okay.
Not a major. Major would be a massive redesign, like some of the redesign of the Constitution that Ernest is building is major. Patch is fixing things like misspellings, but yeah, this still sits within minor.
Okay. And another thing is, so we have the election and removal procedures there. There is no, like, I guess, like I had in my head, and I don't know if this is true, that we were kind of trying to capture the existing mandate and and like rights and responsibilities. And I guess there's nothing that we have now around removal of multi-signers. So I was worried that we were stepping a bit further on this, but maybe it's not a big deal. Can we get just like a quick temp check from this governance crew if we should include the removal of multi-signers as part of this?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Anyone else?
I mean, I think yes.
Go ahead, Ernest.
Yeah, I would think it would make sense to have a removal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ernest approves or agrees.
Right, most like role holders, like there's a removal for role holders in a lot of projects. It's, you know, removal of board member, you know, so onboarding and offboarding.
Yeah, so I guess like particularly I was worried about, so there is a removal section and it says signers can be removed if ABC. And C is kind of like the only thing that I see that is because like A is a signer has violated any of the responsibilities mandated in the proposal, then they can be removed by who? I guess the other signers. And a signer has been active in the DAO for at least one season, so they can be removed by who? Again, the other signers. And any member of the DAO gathers consensus via form on the no confidence state of an individual signer or the multi-signers as a whole. And again, we're counting on the multi-signers to pass this. So for me, the removal ends up being like a multi-signer, like any DAO member can do C, and that should be the case. So we should put that in. But like it still ends up being like the multi-signers who have to remove this person. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think this is the thing is I think this is kind of a responsibility actually. Like we're highlighting one is that the multi-signers must hold each other accountable. Because and I think like I think we 100% should have like election or definition around election and removal. My kind of I'm just like thinking about things in terms of efficiency because I think we need to get more people in the multi-sig and like rotate the crew out, and I'm just concerned about you know, getting tied up around debate because the larger we make this, the more debate will likely generate around any different thing.
Well,
and so there's a part of me that is like, how about we just do an election and get the new multi-sig in? But I think it's also important to, you know, it's like people, we need to be very aware of what people are signing on for, as well as, you know, expected. Like the better we define this, likely the better the outcome. So there's a balance.
Right.
Well, so in formatting, it's what you're looking at is conditions. So if any of these conditions are met, the proposal, anybody can use the proposal in framework in the DAO to initiate a removal of DAO Vault multi-sig signers. Right? So it is an expected responsibility of the multi-sig signers, but as soon as any of those conditions are met, a member in the DAO gathers consensus, you know, they can then gather consensus.
But they can gather consensus for any reason. It doesn't have to be one of these listed reasons. It could be because they went on TV and said DAOs were a total joke or something like that, and now we've lost confidence in them, right? So it's literally any reason that someone could gain consensus around, right?
Yeah, but these are commonly identified. Like, hey, if this, just so you know, if you're inactive for a season, we're going to remove you. Like, just going into it, right? Like, so this just states some conditions. You can do anything in the DAO because remember, we're a referendum-based proposal. You know, we have consensus-based governance. Everything is done by referendum, essentially. So that's a given. All we're saying is these are the conditions for near automatic removal of DAO multi-sig signers if they're inactive.
Isn't that like already encoded in the responsibilities? Like they must sign and execute transactions, right?
Those are responsibilities. These are conditions for removal. And this is why. So when you write articles in a constitution, there's subheadings within the article. And so when you're talking about the responsibilities, you don't talk about removal, because removal is a condition, is an event that's triggered based on a condition, whereas responsibilities are expected of the given member.
I think so. It's to the larger point of should there be a removal? Yes, although I think I have some debate on the current conditions for removal. Like, a signer has been inactive for one season. Like, I could see, somebody being busy for whatever reason. Like, they go on vacation or they need some time off. But likely we do have a maximum, though, of like, if somebody's not around for 2 seasons, like, they've missed a shit ton.
Yeah. And I really don't expect people to not be active without any announcement. Like, except of really if they, God forbid, pass away. Like,
You're right.
But this is the thing. Like, this is what I'm worried about. That we're going to be 2 seasons, 1 season. Let's go back and forth, right? Like, I guess, like, I'm worried that we're going to get bogged down on this removal thing when really all that it is, a signer has violated any of the responsibilities, then any member of the DAO can gather consensus, right? Like,
Yes.
I think that it should be open for the DAO to basically see, like, you are not handling your responsibilities and therefore you should be removed. And even if the multi-signers want to do that themselves, that would be a quicker way to do it, I think. The GC currently has a removal process where if they have a unanimous vote, they can remove another member. We could do the same thing for, like, I don't think that we should include it in here because it's another discussion. It's something that's going to slow us down a little bit, but it is something to I do think that it's I don't know. I'm a little bit worried, but I would disagree and commit.
I agree with what you say, though. Now that I hear you phrase it that way, the way you're suggesting it, as I hear it, is actually much simpler. If you just write in there a failure to meet responsibilities of being a multi-sig signer, anybody in the DAO can start building, like that one statement is all you need. And this is one of the reasons why the collective editing on the Constitution has been so awesome, is because what I'll do is just like, oh yeah, add a little bit more words. That's a little bit more clarifying. And then Hero or Lynx or somebody comes in there and says, well, actually, if we can actually remove some things because something's better written up here, and simplify it. So I would actually support what you said there.
And we're getting leaner over time.
And it's still a condition.
Reducing it.
Right. It's still a condition. The condition is if responsibilities aren't met, then removal of multi-sig signers can be initiated or expected. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that's a good, because that's kind of like what we're doing here, right? Like, I like the less definite, like, more like a little bit broad, but also acknowledging, because that allows some flexibility.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Good points. I think to kind of, I would include like a very simple version, something that along the lines of what Lynx has said in the end, and kind of Ernest has now second, and together with iSchool, I think there seems to be like a kind of general alignment that some version of that the DAO can kind of gather consensus in order to perform something like this. I don't see this proposal failing due to that. So, because we can draw these parallels. That's how the GC is also acting, and it works, or it can work. So yeah, I think that's great. Any other points? I don't know. I don't want to get. I think we have like 7 more minutes. Oh, go ahead.
There is kind of a big point as well in the election procedure. So one of the things I was worried about is that we wouldn't field enough candidates to have a multi-sig. To stop that from happening, I have the election procedure that says That the proposal, okay, so after 1 week, veracity of each candidate's eligibility requirements must be validated. The member would then post the final candidate list in the proposal. The current Vault multi-signers must then post a token-weighted poll on Snapshot with the list of candidates specified above, as well as the lists of current Vault multi-signers as options. So the idea is we never have fewer than 7 people on there. So that's something that is an opinionated view that I was thinking about as we were as I was like writing out this election procedure, because like the worst case for me is like we actually have trouble. We didn't field a full grants committee this season. And neither did we do the previous season, right? So we actually had to remove someone. So I thought that it was important to have some sort of continuity, and that's why I added that. But I added it unilaterally, so that's why I'm trying to be upfront right now and say like, hey, what's up?
I like this because I think we should not have people sitting in the grants committee and the multi-sig and other, let's say the governance department, whatever we might want to call it. So I think ensuring that we have 7 people, so it's a diverse set of, and it's a diverse group is good. And I think the way you phrase this is totally fine. So
I think it's wise too, because I think that like anybody that, so, you know, it's the multi-sig can be operational, but doesn't have to be. And so, you know, I'm talking about like the work that I have on the multi-sig. It's someday, it's like, it's very feast or famine, you know, very busy sometimes, not busy at all other times. And, you know, just kind of like I'm sitting in other roles. But so, you know, with the validation of, you know, we have strong validation for anybody that's get it selected, it's likely like heavily and highly aligned to the DAO. And so too, continuity, like re-election of those people is not ideal, but is better than not having enough. And so I think that it's different than the grants committee, which is like a more strongly operational role for some of the different positions that are like, you know, very busy week to week.
I agree. And don't forget, you've been mostly almost on your own. So going forward, if there's a lot of things to do, there'll be hopefully 7 people to do that. So, which makes
tired face.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Do we have another point? Links, or should we have responsibility to act in accordance to BDAO values? Has the first bullet point been answered, Links? Kind of should we have the responsibility to act in accordance with the DAO's values?
That one is the only one we haven't talked about yet, actually. So there was this idea that Sonata added, which they should act in accordance with BDAO values. That is not a current thing, and some people were worried. I forget who left a comment that we were worried that we would have like a code of conduct thing now as part of this.
It was Hero. It was Hero with the comment, and yeah, it was a good input, and I agreed that this may be more suitable for a code of conduct. And as we don't want to include a code of conduct yet, I thought I'm totally fine with excluding it. So. And I think you all too. So
there is a code of conduct section in the DAO Constitution, so you can always reference that. There's also something, you know, there's basically when you come into the Discord, there's a terms, you know, an agreement. Not suggesting that you go there, but you can reference the code of conduct. I feel would be more appropriate than mission, vision, values, because the code of conduct is just there to ensure that, you know, you're not a mean, malicious person, and you're agreeing to essentially be not mean and malicious.
Yeah, that you act in a value-aligned and responsible way, I think, as well. And I think the most important part for me was that I included there is that, you know, I see the multi-signers being a set of people representing the BanklessDAO entity on chain. So if you basically look up at BanklessDAO, who's governing this body? Like, who are the 7 people? Who's the first line of freaking defense, right? And you're like, okay, these wallets, and these wallets are connected to these ENS domains. And all of a sudden you have individuals, you have faces that you can, what's the word? That are basically, that represent the DAO. So they're kind of like, we have to ensure that those people are value aligned, and I think they have this responsibility if they are the first line of defense, if they are the kind of people that are being maybe also associated with the DAO, or these people are the multi-signers, that they act. It's like, if you have an academic degree, what they tell you is you should act in accordance to the degree that has been granted to you. You should not harm this. You have a certain set of responsibilities now with this certain role or title that has been granted to you, and it kind of similar goes with having a big responsibility within an entity or an organization such as BanklessDAO. And I just wanted to make sure that something along these lines, in terms of having acting in a value aligned way in your day to day is kind of codified. But yeah. Cool. And we've covered. Yeah, go ahead, Jenga. Sorry.
I was just wondering if you have sufficient feedback to proceed. Do you have?
Is this a question towards? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have enough feedback to proceed.
Yeah, 100%. No, appreciate it. Thanks for taking a big chunk of this call for this thing. I it's important. We got to get this right, and we also want to get this right. And I really appreciate every minute we can get to discuss this synchronously. And thanks also, Lynx, again, for making sure. Thank everyone, like TrueCat as well, and Hero. Our working group is really, guys, you're amazing. Thank you. I appreciate your weighing in all the time.
Amazing. Also, thank you to you, Senat, for leading this multi-sig workstream. Okay, we are on the hour. The governance department conversation will happen with the GC today, assuming the GC has time today. But yeah, otherwise, thank you everyone for joining. See you again, same time next week.
Thanks, everybody.